Hello, iBond fans. I hope you're doing well. So the long-awaited September inflation numbers, the September CPI-U numbers, are in, which means that for the most part, we basically know what the November iBond rate will be. In this video, I'll walk you through how we get to the November iBond rate with the September CPI-U number, how much you could earn on your iBonds based on this rate, why some folks may still want to wait until November to buy iBonds, and my personal thoughts on the buy iBonds now or wait decision. As my kids said when they saw that last point, again, buy iBonds now or wait? Yes, again, because that's how often I get this question. Anyway, be sure to take a look at this iBond must-knows checklist if you're new to iBonds before diving headfirst into an iBond investment. Feel free to pause and read through everything at your own pace. This table shows the September inflation and CPI-U numbers that were just released. Inflation came in higher than expected at 8.2% year over year. Bad news for the Fed, okay news for iBonds, and most likely good news for T-bills and other short-term treasuries. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, increases in the shelter, food, and medical care indices were the largest of many contributors, just like last month. Many of you have reached out about oil prices rising again. I've said this before and I'll say it again. Oil prices have historically been and continue to be volatile. An unchanged CPI-U over a few short summer months that was primarily driven by falling oil prices is by no means an indicator that inflation has gone away. Having said that, the September inflation numbers that were just released, the ones that we're using to calculate this November's annualized iBond rate, for the most part, do not reflect OPEC and Russia's recent slash in oil production, and the subsequent increase in gasoline prices, which many of us can attest to. We'll only see and feel this pain in October's inflation numbers, and probably in the months to come as well, depending on how cold winter gets. So here's where September CPI-U ended at. As a reminder, September CPI-U is the one number that we've been missing all along in this November iBond rate formula. Now, let's plug in the September CPI-U and March CPI-U numbers to get to the change in the semi-annual inflation rate, which we have here. Multiply that by 2, and there you have it, super savers, the expected annualized iBond rate for November that we've all been waiting for, 6.48%. Keep in mind that this calculation assumes a fixed iBond rate of 0%. If the fixed rate is anything higher than 0%, which as many of you know, I think will be unlikely, then we'd have to add that fixed rate to this expected annualized November iBond rate, meaning that the annualized November iBond rate will actually be higher than what we just calculated. We'll only know the fixed rate on November 1st, when Treasury Direct officially announces the annualized November iBond rate to the public on their website. So that was all great, but how much does this translate into in terms of interest earned if you already own iBonds or if you're planning to buy them before November 1st? Well, watch on, iBonders, because I've calculated this for you. So based on the annualized November iBond rate we just calculated, and assuming an initial purchase amount of $10,000, I'll start by going through what the numbers could look like in the first 18-month holding period if you bought at the annualized rate of 7.12% between November 1st, 2021 and April 30th, 2022. And then I'll show you what the numbers could look like in the first 12-month holding period if you bought or plan on buying at the current rate of 9.62%. This 9.62 rate is valid for all purchases between May 1st, 2022 and October 31st, 2022. So if you bought your iBonds at the annualized rate of 7.12% between November 1st, 2021 and April 30th, 2022, here's what your numbers could look like. This column here shows the annualized I-bond rate for each 6-month period. So here we have 7.12% for the first 6-month holding period, the current 9.62% for the second 6-month holding period, and the expected November 2022 I-bond rate for the third 6-month holding period. And this column here shows you the total interest earned over each 6-month period at these respective rates. And voila, here's the expected total interest earned over your first 18-month holding period, as well as the expected annualized I-bond return over your first 18-month holding period. Keep in mind that these total interest numbers incorporate the fact that I-bond interest is added to the principal value every 6 months and are calculated using the same formula that Treasury Direct uses, a formula that we unveiled in this video here earlier this year. Before we deciphered this formula, I-bond interest was a bit of a mystery to many super savers. So I highly encourage you to watch this I-bond interest video if you want to learn more about how I-bond interest works, when it shows up in your Treasury Direct account, and why Treasury Direct does it this way. Because while this is what you could earn in interest, this is not the interest amount that you'll see when you log onto your Treasury Direct account. And the reason for this is that in the first 5 years that you hold your I-bonds, Treasury Direct automatically deducts the last 3 months' interest from your account balance to adjust for the early withdrawal penalty. Now, if you bought or plan on buying your I-bonds at the current rate of 9.62%, which is valid for all purchases between May 1st, 2022 and October 31st, 2022, this is what your numbers could look like. As before, this column here shows the annualized I-bond rate for each 6-month period. So in this case, we have the current 9.62% for the first 6-month holding period, and this expected November 2022 I-bond rate for the second 6-month holding period. And this column here shows you the total interest earned over each 6-month period at these respective rates. And here's the expected total interest earned over your first 12-month holding period, as well as the expected annualized I-bond return under this scenario. In my mind, the only reason some folks may want to wait until November 1st to buy I-bonds is if they expect both of these things to happen. One, that the new fixed rate will be high enough to push the overall annualized I-bond rate in November above the current 9.62%. And two, that the annualized I-bond rate in May 2023, which we'll only find out about in mid-April 2023, that this number will also be above the current 9.62%. Because if you think that it'll be below our current 9.62%, why wouldn't you just buy now? So thing one and thing two. Man, I feel like I'm in a Dr. Seuss movie. Anyway, I personally don't think both of these things will happen in tandem. In fact, most of you in our community know that I think the I-bond fixed rate will be zero come November, given that Treasury Direct has been backlogged all year by skyrocketing I-bond demand. And that's despite I-bonds having a zero fixed rate. As I always say though, everyone's financial journey is different. If someone does feel like thing one and thing two could happen together, or perhaps that they could get better returns elsewhere without having their money tied up for 12 months, then I could see a case for that person taking a wait until November and see approach. Now, if you don't fall into the wait until November and see crowd, and you are interested in buying I-bonds or buying even more I-bonds, then check out our I-bond playlist here on all the different ways you can do this. And remember that if you want to get in before the annualized I-bond rate of 9.62% ends, try to put your purchase order in earlier rather than later. Don't wait until the very last days of October. In normal times, all orders are processed the next business day. In current times, With glitches galore on the recently updated Treasury Direct website, you just never know. Better safe than sorry. And in case you need it, here's our step-by-step video on how to buy I-bonds with Treasury Direct. As always, I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, don't forget that thumbs up, and see you again soon with another exciting wealth building video.